The sun was soft and kind that morning, laying a warm path over the sand as Ethan Miller set down a faded blue towel for his 6-year-old son, Liam. The beach was busy but calm. Families chatted, a radio played a cheerful song, and gulls drifted above like lazy kites. Ethan took a slow breath. Days like this were rare for him. He worked early shifts and late shifts, anything that paid the bills. And weekends were a patchwork of laundry, groceries, and keeping the little apartment bright for his boy. Today felt like a gift he didn't want to waste. He helped Liam rub sunscreen on his arms and nose, then pulled a small shovel from the beach bag. "Engineer Miller," Ethan said in a playful voice, "we have a sandcastle to design." Liam giggled and saluted with the shovel. They knelt together, shaping wet sand into towers, tracing a moat with a careful finger. Ethan's hands were steady. He didn't have much in life, but his hands were good hands. They fixed things, held things, and kept promises. He told Liam that castles fell sometimes, and that was okay. "You just build again." Liam nodded, as if this simple truth made the whole wide world easier. A breeze rolled in, and Ethan glanced at the water. He had grown up near lakes, not the ocean, but he respected how water could change without warning. He pointed to the lifeguard chair. "See that red flag?" he asked. "It means be careful of currents." "We'll stay close today," Liam agreed without complaint. He was a good listener, the kind of kid who watched his dad's face for cues and trusted what he saw there. Ethan's phone buzzed in the bag. He didn't check it. He knew the message by heart. A reminder about the court date next week, a thin line of text with heavy meaning. The custody case had been hard on everyone. Ethan didn't say bad things about Liam's mom, Laura. He told Liam that two people can care about the same boy and still not know how to care for each other. He meant it. Still, the quiet pressure lived in his chest every day. He kept records, meal plans, school forms, and bedtime routines written in neat lists. He kept hope, too. Hope that the judge would see a father who tried, who learned, who showed up when it counted. He didn't expect life to be fair. He only asked for a chance to keep raising his son with love and consistency. A sudden shout snapped through the gentle sounds of the beach. Ethan looked up. Near the shoreline, a small cluster of people pointed toward a darker patch of water beyond the gentle break of the waves. He followed their hands with his eyes and saw someone out there, slipping under, arms lifting, then vanishing. The lifeguard stood and put a whistle to his mouth. The sound cut the air. Ethan's body reacted before his thoughts did. He looked at Liam. "Buddy, listen to me." His voice was calm and square. "Stay with our towel. If you need anything, go straight to the lifeguard. Keep your eyes on me." Liam gripped the shovel and nodded hard, his mouth a brave line. Ethan trotted toward the water, then ran. He didn't splash or thrash. He moved with purpose, cutting into the waves in a straight path. The sea was cooler than the air, but not cruel. He counted his strokes. He kept his head low and looked up only to keep the figure in sight. A minute stretched long. The swimmer went under again, then surfaced weakly. Ethan spoke as he swam, his voice steady and clear. "I'm coming. I've got you." He wasn't sure if the person could hear him, but he said it anyway, as much for himself as for them. When he reached her, she was on her back, eyes wide, breaths fast and shallow. She hadn't swallowed much water, but the panic was heavy on her face. Ethan softened his voice even more. "You're okay. Float. We'll go slow." He slid an arm under her shoulders and angled her to the surface. She clung for a second, then followed his lead. Together they drifted, then moved, then drifted again. The current tugged sideways, not straight out, so he guided them diagonally toward shore. He didn't fight the ocean. He worked with it, counting 3 slow kicks, pause, repetition, repeat. The lifeguard reached them halfway. "You good?" he asked, already turning his board toward the beach. "We're okay," Ethan said, and his tone made it true. The lifeguard pulled the woman onto the board and told Ethan to hold the side. As they neared the shallows, the waves grew playful again, pushing them forward in short rides. People hurried to make space. The board slid onto wet sand. The woman coughed, then breathed in slow. She wasn't injured. She was just shaken, surprised by how fear had shot through her like lightning and left a soft tremble behind. A pair of medics came from the boardwalk with a small kit. They asked simple questions and listened to her answers. Her name was Grace. She had been swimming farther than usual, then felt the current shift. She had tried to stay calm, but lost track of how close she was to the drop-off. The medics wrapped a light towel around her shoulders and suggested a few minutes of rest, some water, and shade. She thanked them with a quiet voice. Then she turned to Ethan, who was brushing sand from his palms and glancing back toward the blue towel where Liam waited. "Thank you," she said, the words full and careful. "I don't know how to say it right." Ethan shook his head. "It's all right. I'm glad you're okay." He looked toward his son again. "I have to get back to my boy." She followed his gaze and saw the child standing tall like a small soldier, watching his father as if the ocean had no power over him. "Of course," she said, taking a breath that no longer trembled. "Of course." The lifeguard reached over to bump Ethan's shoulder with grateful respect. A stranger clapped once, then others did too, soft and brief, like a breeze passing through. Ethan walked back to Liam, and the boy ran to him, wrapping arms around his waist. "You said you keep your eyes on me," Ethan whispered, smiling into his son's hair. "You did good." Liam tilted his head back. "Did you help her?" "We helped each other," Ethan said. "She floated. I guided. The lifeguard did the rest." He didn't make himself the center of the story. He never did. He asked if Liam wanted a snack. They shared apple slices and crackers. The castle had slumped a little at the edges. That was fine. They trimmed the sides and made a new doorway. As the afternoon thinned, Grace sat beneath a striped umbrella, sipping cool water, watching the horizon calm itself. She felt steady again, but deeply moved. She studied the man who had saved her. He didn't linger to receive praise. He didn't ask for anyone's attention. He just talked to his boy, checked the sunscreen again, and found a clean shirt for the ride home. When he passed by on his way to the parking lot, she stood without planning to. "Hey," she said gently. "I'm Grace." He stopped and offered his name in return. Up close, his eyes were kind but tired, like someone who had stayed up late doing homework for a life he refused to fail. "I mean it," she said. "Thank you." Ethan gave a small nod. "You're welcome." He turned back to Liam. "Come on, buddy." They waved and walked toward a small, old car with a new child seat and a careful bag of beach things packed with more order than money. Grace watched them go, hands still holding the towel at her throat. That evening, in a neat kitchen with a dented kettle and a calendar full of colored notes, Ethan made pasta and told Liam a bedtime story about a lighthouse that didn't brag about its light. He tucked Liam in and checked the court folder one more time after his son slept. He flipped through photos of school projects, a letter from Liam's teacher praising his kindness, printouts of schedules he had built to keep their days smooth. He closed the folder and stood at the window, watching the streetlights make small islands on the road. He didn't pray often, but he did whisper, "Please let me keep doing my best for him." Across town, Grace stood in her own quiet kitchen. Her home was larger, the counter smooth, the view wider. She'd worked long years to earn this life. She placed the towel from the beach in a laundry basket, then paused. A thought surfaced. The man who saved her had a face she might see again. She walked to her desk and opened her upcoming case list. She scanned with habit and precision. Then she froze. Ethan Miller versus Laura Miller. Custody. Hearing set for next Tuesday at 9. Her breath caught, then steadied. The room felt different, as if a door had opened to a hallway she hadn't planned to walk. Grace had been a judge long enough to know the rules in her bones. Impartiality wasn't just a word. It was a promise. She had stepped aside from cases before when there was any risk of bias. Now she felt a new kind of weight. Ethan had not asked her for anything. He didn't even know who she was. All she knew about him outside the file was what she had seen. A father who gave simple instructions to his child before helping a stranger. A man who didn't turn a rescue into a story about himself. She opened the file, not as the woman from the beach, but as a judge. She read carefully. School attendance records, work schedules, notes from a counselor who'd met briefly with the family, a list of times and dates of pickups and drop-offs. She saw the care in the details, the steady line of effort. She closed the file and sat still. She would review the judicial guidelines in the morning and decide the correct step. She would do what was right under the law first. That was how she honored both her oath and the memory of the day. The morning of the hearing began quiet. Ethan woke before the sun and stood in the small kitchen, letting the kettle hum while he checked his folder one last time. The folder held everything he could think of: school notes, a calendar of Liam's bedtime and homework routine, photos of dinners they cooked together, a letter from his manager about his steady hours, and a note from Liam's teacher praising his patience with classmates. He slid the folder into his bag with careful hands. He didn't feel brave, but he felt ready. That was enough. Liam padded into the kitchen in pajamas, hair sticking up like a tiny crown. "Do you have to go now?" he asked. Ethan knelt so their eyes were level. "I do," he said softly. "But Grandma will pick you up for school. You'll read your library book to her in the car, okay?" Liam nodded. He reached into his pocket and took out a smooth gray pebble he had found at the beach. "Lucky rock," he said. "Keep it." Ethan closed his hand around the pebble and felt a surprising calm. "Thank you, Engineer Miller," he said with a wink. They hugged. It wasn't a dramatic goodbye. It was ordinary and strong, like a knot tied exactly right. Outside, the air was cool, the sky turning from pearl to blue. Ethan drove carefully, the lucky pebble on the seat beside him like a quiet friend. He arrived at the courthouse 30 minutes early, just to breathe. He sat on a bench in the hallway and watched people move with the special hush of official buildings. Some were confident, some tired, some nervous like him. He allowed himself one long breath for every tile in the floor where he sat. By the time his lawyer arrived, his heartbeat had settled into an even drum. His lawyer, a clear-eyed woman named Priya, sat with him for 5 minutes to review the plan. "Answer only what is asked," she reminded. "Speak simply. Let the evidence do the work. We have a good case." Ethan's hands were steady. "Thank you," he said. He wasn't thinking about winning. He was thinking about telling the truth in a way that a stranger could recognize. The bailiff called the case. Ethan stood. Laura stood too, in a neat dress and a guarded expression. She looked at Ethan the way people look at a closed door they are sure they used to have a key for. They filed into the courtroom. It smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and paper. When the judge's door opened and Grace Anderson stepped to the bench in her black robe, Ethan felt the floor tilt, then settle. She was composed, her gaze even as morning light. For the briefest moment, their eyes met. It was not a secret look. It was two people recognizing the truth of a shared day and then placing that truth gently aside. "Good morning," Judge Anderson said. Her voice carried without strain. "We are here to consider custody for the minor child, Liam Miller." I will remind all present that this court is focused on the best interest of the child." She glanced at the files. Then, with calm care, she spoke again. "Before we begin, I need to disclose something. Last week, at a public beach, I had a brief interaction with Mr. Ethan Miller. He rendered aid during an incident in the water. He did not know who I was, and I did not know his name at the time. We did not discuss this case or any details related to it. If either party believes my impartiality is affected, you may request reassignment." The room held its breath. Ethan looked to Priya. Lavra looked to her attorney. Both lawyers stood, each cautious and professional. Priya said, "Your Honor, we appreciate your disclosure. We do not request reassignment." Laura's lawyer, after a short whisper with his client, said the same. Grace nodded once. "Very well. We will proceed. I will weigh only the evidence as it relates to the child." The hearing began. Laura's lawyer spoke first, painting a picture of instability, long work hours, a small apartment, missed birthday dinners due to shifts. His voice was firm but not harsh. He presented a schedule that made Ethan's days look like a puzzle with too many pieces. When it was Priya's turn, she did not argue with big words. She placed small truths side by side. The letter from the manager showing Ethan's new steady shift. The teacher's note about Liam's calm joy. The doctor's visit logs. The calendar with colored blocks for homework, playtime, and bedtime. She spoke about consistency and kindness. She did not promise perfection. She showed care. Ethan took the stand. He didn't try to charm anyone. He answered questions like he was walking a child across a busy street, slowly, clearly, checking both ways. He explained his routine, waking at 5, preparing breakfast, leaving gentle notes for Liam if he had to start early, arriving at pickup with snacks and a question about the best part of the day. He described a simple rule in their home. If we make a mess, we make it together and clean it together. He smiled once when he remembered Liam saying, "Team Miller," as they wiped the table. The court reporter typed steadily, the keys a soft rain. Laura spoke too. She said she wanted what was best for her son. She said she worried that Ethan's life was too tight, like a belt with the last hole worn out. She said she could offer more space, more travel, more ease. The judge listened to every word with the same still attention. When asked about shared decisions, school meetings, doctor visits, both parents agreed they had tried. The trying had sometimes failed. Feelings got loud. Schedules crashed. But both said they loved the boy at the center of it all. That was clear. There was a small moment that became larger than expected. Priya introduced the letter from Liam's teacher. Grace read it silently. It was plain and short. Liam is attentive, respectful, and patient with peers. He often helps others without being asked. His homework is always completed, and he speaks positively about both parents. There were no big flourishes. Only solid lines of a child's life drawn with a steady pencil. Grace set the letter down slowly. She asked 2 follow-up questions about school involvement. Both parents had attended conferences. Both had volunteered once. The difference was not in flashy acts. It was in quiet bookmarks, the routine, the bedtime reading chart, the packed lunches that wrote a soft story day after day. As the morning sun shifted through the high windows, the courtroom felt less like a stage and more like a small room where people brought their honest pieces to make a clear picture. When it was time for closing statements, Laura's lawyer asked the court to consider opportunity and comfort. Priya asked the court to consider continuity and presence. Grace thanked them both and called a short recess. She returned 15 minutes later with notes in neat handwriting and an expression that did not choose sides, only standards. This court considers the best interest of the child to be the guiding star, she began. That includes stability, emotional well-being, and the ability of each parent to meet daily needs. The evidence shows both parents love their child. The evidence also shows a consistent, organized routine in Mr. Miller's home that supports Liam's school success, health, and daily care. She paused, then continued with care. Therefore, primary physical custody is granted to Mr. Ethan Miller, with liberal and meaningful parenting time for Ms. Laura Miller. Legal custody remains joint. The parenting schedule will include overnights with Ms. Miller, regular weekends, and shared holidays on an alternating basis. Both parents will attend school meetings and medical appointments, and they will communicate through a shared calendar to reduce conflict. Any changes in work hours must be shared within 48 hours. This order seeks to keep Liam's life steady and filled with the love of both parents. The words landed like gentle stones building a path across water. Ethan did not cheer. He did not drop his head. He closed his eyes for a second and let a breath out through his nose as if he had been carrying a heavy bag and could now set it down. Laura nodded with a tight mouth and a small, brave tear. She loved her son. She would keep loving him. The judge looked at both of them and added, if either party struggles with the schedule, the court encouraged mediation before conflict. Remember, the goal is not to win against each other. It is to win with your child. The hearing ended. Papers were signed. The room emptied in a polite shuffle. In the hallway, Priya shook Ethan's hand warmly and told him to go celebrate with something simple and good. Ice cream, he said, almost laughing at how perfect and plain that sounded. He thanked her and walked toward the exit. The lucky pebble was still in his pocket, smooth as a good outcome. Near the doorway, a clerk approached with a message. Judge Anderson would like a moment, if you are willing, the clerk said. Ethan hesitated, then nodded. He followed the clerk to a small conference room, where sunlight lit the table like a quiet stage. Grace entered without her robe, wearing a plain blouse that made her look less like a symbol and more like a person. She closed the door softly. Mr. Miller, she said, thank you for agreeing to speak. He stood, then sat when she gestured. She folded her hands. Her voice was calm. I wanted to say something I could not say on the record. Thank you for what you did at the beach. Ethan shook his head lightly. You don't owe me thanks. I know, she said. But gratitude is not a debt. It is a truth. They both smiled, small and real.